This episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you love underground music and movies, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed shirts, vinyl, CDs, and more. Go to portlanddistro.com. Plug in the discount code MikeHill666 for 15% off at portlanddistro.com. And thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Everything Went Black podcast. The great Eugene S. Robinson returns this week. We primarily talk about his forthcoming memoir, A Walk Across Dirty Water and Straight into Murderer's Row. But of course, we talk about the most recent Oxbow record, Love's Holiday, and the series of videos that are coming out for each song on the record. Now, once you're done listening to this, please head over to the other Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse shows. On Monday, we have Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. On Tuesday, Jackie Smith brings us into the Necrosphere. Of course, Wednesday is the day that Everything Went Black usually comes out. I know we missed a week a couple weeks ago, but we've rectified that problem. Thursday, Necro Thursday, I return with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid for the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. Friday, Break the Apocalypse comes, an irreverent look at current events and social commentary. Saturday is a day off, and then Sunday, Carl Hikara brings us Soul Knocks. And that's a pretty impressive week of content. It's our war against mediocrity. If you want to support the podcast, check out our Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the show and get access to all the bonus content. For $5 a month, you can get early access to the regular stream episodes as well as bonus content. For $25, you can become a sponsor, which means I give you a custom ad read once a month for your band, your own podcast, your business, or whatever project you have that you're trying to promote. And that can be for 1 month or into eternity. You can also follow us on all social media channels, and be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you listen to streaming media. I'd like to take this time to thank brand new Patreon member, Andreas. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you, and we have a lot of fun. Another book is coming out.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've only read Fight. I haven't read the fiction Along Slow Screw. But I'm a fan of your writing. I follow you on Substack and read all your various articles and whatnot. So this is a little bit different, though. A Walk Across Dirty Water and Straight into Murderer's Row is a memoir. So how long ago did you start writing this?
Maybe 2 years, right? I mean, I'm a relatively I don't labor over this stuff like many do. Adam Parfrey had been after me for years to do it, and I felt uncomfortable. With it. And in the same way, at one point, a teacher in an art class I had taken asked me to be a model. He just sit down, he said. So just sit down here, and the class is going to sketch you today. And he started analyzing my face in a way that nobody had ever analyzed my face. And I found myself getting increasingly uncomfortable with it. And, I was 15 years old. and you do what people do when they feel uncomfortable in situations like that, this close scrutiny. I just started making jokes, and then eventually the teacher got so annoyed that he said, "You know what? Get out and sit down." And he used somebody else. So I was rescued, and this was kind of like that. Parfrey had been, Parfrey and I had known each other for years back when he was doing Amok Press. He'd had me write a couple of forwards for his books. I've been in positions to review his books, and he had been asking me for years. They don't do fiction, so that was out, to do a memoir, and I just couldn't figure out how I could do one and tell the truth. And he died, and then his sister and Christina Ward picked up the baton and kept at me, and Christina actually flew out to San Francisco and said, "Listen, nobody cares about your sex life. There's a lot of stuff," which was my concern. There's a lot of stuff that you've done, experience, that I know just from talking to Adam, that people might dig on to hear, and I'd like to hear, and I go, like, what? She's like, all the weird shit you did, like, before you got into punk rock and interview, whoever, John Wayne Gacy. I go, yeah, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And she said, so maybe, given how books are, if you cut it off at, I don't know, go birth to 27, or I said, yeah, that'd be about the time when I started Oxbow. She goes, yeah, okay, so go birth to the creation of Oxbow. And I go, I think that works, because officially, I in my mind, when I think about Oxbow, I think about that as the moment in my life where I lost my mind. Yeah, right. So the memoir, there's a lot of stuff that happened before that, what I was still pretty kind of controlled and contemplative about it, versus, jumping into the waves like I did at the start of the Oxbow era.
Now, let me ask you, what was the catalyst for you losing your mind at that point?
Well, suicidal ideation, and it sounds completely, at this remove of all these years, it sounds, like a young man's conceit, but bad relationship. But this was an extraordinarily bad relationship. The woman had gotten married, but was having sex with me the night before the wedding. Probably would have had sex with me the night of the wedding, and during the honeymoon. And then, pretty soon after, he had jokingly introduced the topic of possibly, murdering her husband. And, wow. It was just, I was not in a frame of mind or suited to be able to handle it the best way possible. And then I had a road to Damascus moment, and it was like, where Saul was struck blind and changed into Paul. Except for me, the phrase that kept resonating with me was quiet embrace of self. And prior to that, I had spent all my time, becoming. Like, I wanted to be, a better weightlifter, bodybuilder. I want to be better. I got to better. And sort of around this period is when I realized, much like Popeye, that I am as I am. I am what I am. And I said, I've read biographies of historical figures who have had this moment. Hitler. This is not a great example, but Stalin, Hitler, a lot of these world leaders, Mao, had incidences in their lives where clearly something, twigged, and this could just be a creation myth that they like to sell post facto. I don't know. So I decided at that point, I said, I will follow this road unless I have some insight, like I don't think that they really had necessarily, like Stalin, unless I start to have a deleterious effect on the people I love and care about around me. So as long as my craziness only proves me to be a danger to me, and not others who I love and care about, I will continue down this path. So that was me trying to manage up my psychopathology at that point.
A couple of thoughts come to mind right off the bat. I actually have this written down in my notes, but Hitler and some of the more well-known fascist authoritarian leaders in the world's history they seem to be not far from your thoughts based on, I listen to your podcast pretty regularly.
Yeah, there's a drinking game
So,
where if I mention Nazis, you get to take a drink.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we're just under 7 minutes into this talk. We already mentioned Hitler and Stalin. So what's up with that?
Well, if you want to look for, repository for, earthly examples of a word that I hesitate to use, which is evil, I think you'll healthily find it there, and especially since there's a combination of projection, suggestion, and people's willingness to have others sign off on their horror. And I think these are all apropos in smaller ways for most of us, right?
Yeah.
So, in the instance where, and look, if you read the alternating biographies and comparative studies, there are a lot of similarities, right? All of these men, Hitler, Mao, Stalin, terrible relationships with their fathers, right? Great and doting relationships or non-existent relationships with their mothers. And so I'm starting, of course, naturally to see parallels because I have a horrible non-existent relationship with my father. And, and understand kind of, the psychomonographs that creates, when you move through life. And and also, I mean, these guys, one of the most amazing things about them all is how lazy they all were.
Okay.
I mean, they were like, the Great March, Mao didn't march. He was carried. He was carried by people who were dying because he had so many books and so much food and the little thing that, the little, whatever, pajandrum or whatever it's called, they carried on their shoulders. Like 12-year-old kids would carry it, but they had to, the kid would die in the mud and he was, hey, well, get somebody else. You guys got to carry me the rest of the way. I mean, these guys were all terribly lazy, and yet they accomplished a lot of really bad shit. So, I think of a line from Hamlet. What would they had been a motive and cue for he's talking about the players. So, the motive and cue for passion that I have. So I start to think, if I had the motive and cue for passion, but not the desire for fucking decimation of humans, what could I get done? In other words, the meditation is on again, a word I don't like to use because of its moral framing, but evil, right? So.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by that sort of topic because of just when you get a cross section of people that have a similar experience, how they react to that is always a very interesting thing to me. Like you bring up these fascist, non-existent relationship with their father, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And the laziness aspect, and then how choices are made and things happen in their lives, and you get completely different outcomes depending on the character of the person.
Right. I mean, there are books out there. I'm not mining anything that's not usually available to everybody, but it's always, it's kind of amusingly confusing to me that they get imbued with all this kind of super ego attribute stuff, like, oh, they were these masterful, controlling, driving nations. These guys were like kind of fuck ups non-pareil, and what they managed to do was just hold the door open through which people could rush. Okay, I got you. Gotta rush right through it. Really, now, that door of anti-Semitism, we hadn't discovered it before, and you introduced us to it. Come on, No.
Now, I'm a sensitive sort of guy, and you discussed that issue that sort of propelled you into that era of madness in your life around the formation of Oxbow. So is that covered in the memoir, or is it start and stop right before that era?
Oh, no. I mean, it's necessary to. I talk about. It's not like I get up to the creation of Oxbow. There's no fucking cliffhanger.
Right. Okay, that's what I was getting at. Because No.
If you have understood if you have understood, if you have an appreciation for the Oxbow discography, you'll get to the end of the book and you go, I got it. You know, I understand now. I figured this out. Okay. So
yeah, no, it's yeah, because I'm really looking forward to reading the book. I pre-ordered it, so should be showing up.
Oh, good.
Weeks.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
of course.
I think, you know, the interesting thing was, I mean, there was, you know, I remember reading this thing about Kafka and about how he and his writers group, people kept thinking about him as this kind of dour, sour type character, and and they said no, he had a great sense of humor. He was always laughing, so it was great imagining Kafka like going through these heavy books, just kind of laughing his ass off. But when A Long Slow Screw, which, you know, it's fiction, but it was largely drawn from, you know, when I was working out in at the Olympia in Ridgewood, and there were a lot of guys who I discovered later were connected. I hadn't figured out that they were connected at the time, you know, but so I said, well, I can't write you know, I'm not going to snitch them out. I said, let's create a work of fiction and put it in the fiction. And I kind of realized that, you know, I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. Yeah. No, but the not to make it about me, but I've been working on some fiction as well, and I find that the fiction comes a lot easier when it actually is kind of autobiographical, and then you have license to expand on that and add things and tell a true story in a completely false way, but it actually resonates more true than if you actually told the truth sometimes, you know.
Well, and that's the thing which you have to be careful about. You know, there's a woman who I know who I used to mess around with, and she read A Long Slow Screw, my novel, and she had sent me a super angry email because somehow what she read when she read, which is a book that's essentially a crime saga, what she got is that I was talking about our relationship.
Right.
And it was so crazy. I said, hey, listen, this is when I wrote the book. When did I meet you?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay. Okay, sorry. I was drinking last night. I was like, okay, whatever. So, no, the point was in writing the book. So it took me a couple of years to write the book. And there are large sections of it that are, though heavy though they might be, I did find myself kind of, you know, I mean, my whole oeuvre has always had this dark kind of comedic thing to it. So there are darkly amusing things in it, whether or not it's me, you know, witnessing a rape or as happened, or, you know, being held up at gunpoint, or whatever I'm talking about is usually like the fact that I've survived it should undergird it, so that you have to have a life understanding of it as this is just formative stuff, man. This is just stuff that happens to people on their way to being older people, you know? So, but I did sit and write, and I was very concerned about, and that's where I was going with it. I was very concerned about this. How nice do I want to be? Right? I mean, there's a great line from Do the Right Thing where Edson says to Turo, he goes, how come everything he tells you to do, you tell me to do? Right? So I start to think, like, you know, if we share a competence, at what point does that become fodder for the memoir? Or am I being an asshole? Or so there were a couple like kind of forks in the road where I came to, and I was like, you know what, this is probably confidential. And then I decided, yeah, you know what, fuck it. You know, if you talk to a writer, you know, you run the risk of shit happening. So just whatever. I'm sorry. What are you gonna do? Beat me up? You're not gonna be my friend anymore. You know, I'm out here trying to work a hustle. So you know, insofar as possible, if I thought it was gonna really damage somebody, I didn't use their name. So.
Now, one of the things that I'm really excited about is like I'm not really one of these guys who gets it really stoked on rock and roll like books, you know. But
yeah,
so you're not just a guy in a band, you know. We're not going to read about, you know. I'm sure there's a lot of musical stuff in there, but there's also a lot of other kind of things in the book, which I'm hoping you get into.
Yeah,
and you know, you said it starts from birth. So I'm assuming it's going to, you know, obviously covering the days you lived in Brooklyn, and
yep,
you know, maybe some early New York hardcore stuff,
Yeah.
Do you also talk about, fighting and, working out and,
Yeah.
bodybuilding and all that stuff? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's weird about writing the book is that, and this is a testament probably to how good the editors are. You finish it and it's pretty long, and then you read it, and you go, "That's pretty good." I said, I thought I put that thing in here about me pulling the gun on the guy. I don't remember. I don't remember whether they took it out or I just didn't put it in. There's a few occasions where there's stuff like that. But what's there flows. So I'm assuming if I did put it in and they took it out, it still flows. If I didn't put it in, I don't need to put it in because it flows. And if I didn't put it in and I remembered it, do I think it should go in, or do I think it should go in? Was I doing some kind of self-protection thing for not putting in, which is cheesy, and that means I should put it in? So I was like, okay, me pulling the gun on the guy, that actually happened after the creation of Oxbow. So technically, I don't have to put that in the book. So I realized, I didn't put that in. I should put that in because I don't want to write a book that makes me seem like a great guy, right? It's not PR that I'm doing. I'm trying to tell the truth about stuff. So it was just a constant process of trying to remember, to remember the story as it stood. And at the same time for me to piece it together in a way that makes sense to me as well, having lived it, right?
Yeah. You've been living in California for a large portion of your life, right, at this point?
More than I was in New York at this point, right?
But you still consider yourself a New Yorker, though.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I've never made my peace with California. I've never made my peace really with California. And I'm indeed next year leaving California. And I think when people ask me, where are you from? My attitude, and always what I reply with, is you're from where you went to high school.
Okay.
And there's some guys I know, usually military kids, who have gone. A friend of mine, he's a quantum mechanics professor in France now. He started his high school in Hawaii. His father was a CB, Navy guy. And then he ended his high school, so 2 years in Hawaii and then 2 years in Virginia. And you can't get further apart. So where is he from? Wow, man, that cat is a citizen of the universe, right?
Yeah.
But me, all my schooling was in New York. I ventured out of New York not at all until I was 18. So,
because I actually knew of you before I actually met you in person, and when I first started listening to Oxbow, I just assumed you guys were like a New York band, honestly. Yeah.
Well, you can hear it in my voice, you know. I mean, and that's one thing that struck me about Rollins, and I talk about him in the book because I met him. His first show with Black Flag in San Francisco was when I met him. And we had friends in common. And when they did Damage with Black Flag, you could listen to it, and I was like, "This is the first time I've heard hardcore with an East Coast accent." And it was like, "Oh man!" So I really am in the right place, because clearly, punk rock is one thing, but in terms of hardcore, the Mecca at that time was fucking, despite the Bad Brains, was the West Coast, right?
Right. Yeah.
You talk about original hardcore, the names that come up, nod of the head to Penelope Spheris, were all the bands that were in the decline, right?
Yeah.
And not a single one of those bands was east of the Rockies. So it was like, it was weird. It's like, oh yeah, and then of course there was East Coast hardcore, but. Yeah, so my identification is in any given situation, if you say, is Eugene going to respond like a New Yorker, or he's going to respond like a Californian? You would never lose a bet if you say, he's going to respond like a New Yorker, right? And then if you want to get granular about it, you could say, is he going to respond like a guy from Brooklyn, or is he going to respond like a guy from San Francisco? and you would not lose money by guessing correctly that I'm going to respond to something like a like a guy from Brooklyn. So
Yeah, because I remember when I first started listening to Oxbow, it was like I just either I figured you guys were from like one of those like Manhattan, like Lower East Side, cop shoot cop, unsane like
yeah,
world, or you were from Chicago or something like that. I would have never picked the West Coast.
yeah, it's happened a lot. I mean, you still read a lot of reviews where people misidentify as like, oh, these guys from Chicago, New York, Chicago, usually Chicago, New York, Chicago, New York, Chicago, New York. But yeah, I don't. I mean, that's the whole thing about why Whipping Boy became emotionally not satisfying. Because of the whole West Coast influence, which I don't like. I think it would be. I'm not. Don't really. I don't want to shake anybody's hustle, but I don't know. It would be sort of nightmarish for me now to be like Jello Biafra. Like, or maybe it's like David Letterman once said about the recently departed Pee Wee Herman after he got busted jerking off in the theater. He said, "Hey, well, at least you don't have to wear the gray suit now."
Oh,
I mean, my whole thing has been not wanting to get caught up in having to wear the gray suit. Maybe Biafra doesn't have to do that. Maybe he really cares about all that stuff that he's talking about. But I like evolution, so.
There's a blurb about the memoir, which one sentence of it really stuck out to me. I'm going to read it to you. And
Okay.
He knows exactly who he is and how he is perceived by the white people and white culture that surrounds him. I was like, I read that and I fucking laughed. I was like,
yeah. And you also knew instinctively that I didn't write that.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, you know what, man? If the people who are involved in selling the book have a fucking take, whatever. Well, I'm excited that they show up to their desk and they help me sell the book. And because, of course, in the first 10 pages, I debunk all that shit immediately. I don't. I'm not your field guide. That's not what's happening. So. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. But you know what? It's their business to sell books. If they think that's going to sell, who am I?
Yeah, because I never picked up on that kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
Name a song. Name a song where name anything. Anything that I've produced since 1980 or even before. Name one thing.
So working with Feral House, that's. I have like nothing but respect for that publishing company. I've been a fan of Amok and Apocalypse Culture and like the Process Church books they did. There's like the Gates of Janus, that Ian Brady, Myra Hindley thing. That's a real accomplishment in my opinion to have a company like that release something like that's so personal.
Yeah. Well, I've had, HarperCollins did the Fight book. The novel, A Long Slow Screw Now, has made it into it's French, Italian, and English, but a smaller company, Robotic Boot, which had been an offshoot of Hydra Head, which they now, I guess they reverted, the English version, the rights have reverted to me. I'm enjoying working with Feral. Like you said, I've read them for years as well, and it feels nice to me to be part of the family. It feels also a little bit weird to me to be like I check out what they've done, and I think they've made so many great right moves. And then I was just the other night I saw a Veil. And I was like, man, these guys used to be the shit. What happened? Like, how did they end up? Is it misreading their appeal or why? I haven't figured out why one was sustainable and one wasn't. So,
I mean, not to denigrate a Veil, but I feel like there comes a point in every band's career where enough is enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and that kind of leads in nicely to the brand new Oxbow record. And I gotta say, man, I have ordered the vinyl. I have the digital copy of it, but this late in your career to deliver a record like this, I think it's probably one of the strongest records you guys have done, honestly.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I mean, the calculations, and these words have been kind of coming up in some of the reviews, and I can see people are thinking like, in reviewing it, did they actually do this? like how? What the fuck? How didn't they? And I mean, if you think of it, you know, when Whipping Boy went from the sound of no hands clapping to Muru Muru, that was like jumping off a fucking cliff, right? Nobody who listened to the sound of no hands clapping was in any way, shape, or form prepared for Muru Muru. But with Oxbow, we spent 8 records getting here. So you should not be, nobody, like Mr. Marcus once said about one of his crying co-stars on a porn set. He said that, you know, they knew what the job was when they took it, you know. And that's kind of where, with the Oxbow thing, you knew what the job was when you took it. So,
I wouldn't say I was surprised, but it's. I mean, you know, I'm familiar with the entire catalog. I've seen you guys play a bunch of times, and you know, what surprises me though is the restraint on the record. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the thing that gets me is like. I listened through the whole album several times, and I'm like, there's a lot of discipline and restraint in the songwriting. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, my wife said something that I thought was pretty compelling after we heard it for the first time. She goes, for the first time, to me, you sound like the Eugene I live with. Right, and she didn't qualify that, didn't explain it, so that could be good or bad. I'm not quite sure. I should have asked her for clarification, but I was still am mulling over what it is that she was talking about. So, but yeah, it was, again, maybe it was being in the midst of writing the memoir, but my desire was to. I've heard other writers talk about this. Is it to do one true thing, to make it as direct and as honest of an appeal as possible. So your only critical avenue at that point is to say, I don't like it. If you don't like it, I understand that. But you can't say it failed in its objective because its objective was never to get you to like it. It was to document something that was real, so.
Yeah, it's when you're talking about real and true and stuff like that. I always go back to The Lost Highway, the David Lynch film.
Yeah.
Where I forgot the character's name, but the Bill Pullman character, where he's like he likes to remember things in his own way.
Yeah.
And ever since I saw that movie back in the '90s, and that's right around the time when I started writing lyrics and things.
Yep.
That has always been my approach to writing. Has been like, not necessarily to capture the truth, but to tell the truth in a way that is completely filtered through the lens that I see it in. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. And I felt like that's always been like something I've always thought about with Oxbow and your lyric writing and that kind of thing too.
Well, it was easier to do with Oxbow, and especially in this instance because the music dictated where I was going to go. I was listening to the music as I wrote the lyrics, right?
Right.
But the perfect storm of me being involved in writing a memoir at the same time, that was heavy because what was happening with the memoir, and that is making decisions page by page on, honest. It's like the platonic triad. I got to I can't fuck this up. Kind of transferred to the lyrics. So, the music, Nico, when he's talked about the music, talks about it, his impetus being a lot of family stuff,
right.
Death of the mother, death of the father, love for his kids. For me, the entire lyrical expanse is about romantic love. So, a little bit different for me. But this was, I went through a divorce during the creation of this record. And so a lot of these things are things I've been thinking about. And much like with the Substack, I'm really writing about stuff I've been obsessed with the entire prior week. So, in lyrically or in terms of the memoir, that this has been the obsession. Like, one, can you see things clearly? And once having seen them clearly, can you clearly describe them? And that's the challenge, right?
Yeah, that's, I was thinking about the memoir and the making of this record and how it really is kind of a unique point in which to have these two things come out almost side by side,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they pushed back the pub date on for reasons that have nothing to do with me. Printing books is like printing fucking vinyl, where if you don't hit your date, then you have to, you get in the queue and you got to get in the back of the line or some shit like that. So the pub date is now October 12th. So
October 12th. Okay. Now let me,
which is fine by me. Whatever. I don't care. Yeah. I mean, if I had known I had the time, I would have tried to get that picture from Gilman, but whatever.
Are you going to do any sort of speaking dates as promotion for this? Like, reading passages?
Yeah. Constant. Yeah. I mean, if they're typically what we're going for is if Oxbow is playing in town that night and there's a bookstore in town during the day that wants to do this, then both Eric and Vincent overseas are seeking these out. It's easier than having me come back. And like Humphrey Bogart says, I'm glad to talk.
Now, I haven't looked at your schedule, but what do you guys have lined up for like the coming months?
We have 16 days in September overseas, starting with Glasgow, ending in Denmark. And then we have 3 back east, Portland, Maine, Philly, and New York. And then we have 3 out west. And I mean, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday deal is what we do so we can all stay employed. Those of us who are employed. At the end of July, I'm officially unemployed. So my objective at this point is to fill up my time with book or record shit that I couldn't do if I had a job and make that shit pay, So if people are contacting me with this idea, Eugene will be glad to do this for free. Get that shit out of your head. Something. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You gotta pay me something. So.
Wow. Okay. What man? I gotta definitely catch up with you guys at the New York show for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and because it'd be cool to see the band perform all these songs live.
Well, and that's the thing. We got to make changes because we're not traveling with the choir, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me ask you about the podcast and the Substack and all this sort of stuff. And how do you find this Substack platform? Like, how has that been working out for you so far?
I really like it. I mean, I got a touch of the, OCD, right? So it's built into the system now. Like I know where I'm going to be Sunday. I know what has to happen, but I'm obsessed with the same sort of things, right? So I gotta parse that out. Like I'm super dialed into this whole Trump indictment thing. But again, I don't. But from a different point of view, I'm more amused at this point. I mean, this is the first common man thing he's ever had to do. Really, it's like rich guys get speeding tickets too, but rich guys don't have to go to the fucking class, the speeding class, so you can keep your insurance low and spend 8 hours with a bunch of other dumbasses. They don't have to do that, right? So just to see him in court, it's like a real fucking glorious, this is how the other half lives, bud. So it's the Substack thing is great. They pay me, no problem. I know that initially they had some problems about who was on the platform and all that kind of social media shit. I'm not dialed into that. I just, I want something easy so that people initially could get the stuff for Ozzy that Ozzy wasn't going to publish, so.
Right. Do you work with an editor to look over any of the material that you publish?
You know what? Friends of mine who had worked with me in other publications who are really into the Substack were like, hey, you know, if you get it to me before you publish it, I'll be glad to edit it for you. And, you know, trying to build somebody else into the workflow was just kind of a hassle for me. And the jungle takes care of that. So people typically write me and say, if it's a typo and they caught it, they'll tell me. And if it's a fucking shitty argument that I've made somehow, they'll also tell me that. So I can make mid-course corrections, or, you know, correct in a later one, you know, or address their critique in a later one in some way. So, you know, they say everybody needs an editor, but, you know, the Substack format seems to dictate that if what you expect when you read The Atlantic is what you're expecting when you read my Substack, you're probably expecting the wrong stuff.
All right. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Yeah.
That being said, you know, if I'm using facts and figures, you know, I'm trying to apply some journalistic rigor to, you know, the facts and figures. So.
Oh, speaking of journalism, it's funny. You're Eugene S. Robinson.
Yes.
Not to be confused with Eugene Robinson, who I've seen on MSNBC.
Eugene H. Robinson.
H. Robinson.
Yeah. Yeah, when they did the fight book, they said, you know, there's the other Eugene. You want to, you know, fuck that guy. And then I realized, you know, dude's about 10 years older than me, and it's got to be an extreme drag for him. I mean, do you know how often, like, I've gotten his checks before, you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, we both have done NPR, and then when I was editor-in-chief of Code magazine, I really tried to get him in because I thought it would be hilarious to do a piece called Eugene on Eugene. But, you know, from his point of view, I could hear him saying, like, man, I fucking won a Pulitzer. Why are people asking me if I've written about Kitten Natividad? You know? So, I mean, that we write about such different things, I started to have a lot of sympathy for him. So I'm okay using my middle initial. And realistically speaking, he seems like a nice guy. I mean, I've gotten his checks back to him, and, you know, and he's made comments back and forth. So, you know, he's fine. He's doing okay with it.
Yeah, I think it was MSNBC or something like that. I had the YouTube channel on, and yeah, going through some news. And I was doing something else, you know, while I had the news feed going on. And then I heard the name Eugene Robinson come up. And I was like, hold on a second. Let me, you know, Eugene Robinson on MSNBC.
Yeah.
I was like, and then I'm like, then this other guy shows up.
Yeah.
Another, you know, African-American gentleman. And I was like, that's not Eugene Robinson that I know. And then that's when it kind of got into the whole exploration who the other Eugene Robinson was. It's interesting.
Well, there's also the football player, but, you know, I know everybody knows I'm not playing football. So, yeah, no. And there's also the gay bishop, you know, but he does the thing that I hate. He has people call him Gene, and I will never do this. So, yeah, there are a lot of us out there, but yeah, me and the writer, it's weird just to be in the same field, kind of, you know, it's weird.
Now, the Show Stomper podcast, as you become more and more cynical, it appears, with the UFC, okay?
Mm.
Do you feel that show is going to evolve into something else?
Well, it already has. I mean, I talked about it where I was like, I'm going to fucking leave. Yeah. And like, I mean, MMA is not going to fucking maintain any interest for me in a serious way for long, based on the shittiness of the people involved. However, I go, you know what? It costs me nothing to stay and be a thorn in their side. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm having no effect here. Guess what? This is breaking news. I just found this out yesterday. Tom Gerbasi, VP of Communications at the UFC, has requested a review copy of my memoir.
Wow. Damn.
So I'm thinking I'm just doing radio and I'm out in the wilderness and nobody's paying attention. Apparently not so, you know. And I said, yeah, go ahead, send it to them. That's weird. They could afford it, I guess, but, you know, why would they want that? Why would they want that? So it's already, you know, I mean, I've spent whole shows not talking about fighting at all. However, if there's a fight Saturday and I'm watching it, now that I'm not doing care, don't care, I don't have to watch it, so I'm choosing to watch it, then it serves as a nice kind of, cognate for me a lot of times to talk about stuff well beyond the fight field.
There was definitely a law of diminishing returns when it comes to the frequency of these cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was like,
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you, man. I used to watch every weekend, and
Yep.
I think I missed like the last 5 events, maybe, including the last one, the last pay-per-view with Jan Blachowicz
that was all right. That I didn't regret actually paying for that. That was all right.
Well, I've been a fan of Alex Pereira since he was in Glory. Like I've always.
Oh, that's
been,
right. Yeah.
I've been a huge fan of his, man. I love that guy, and it's interesting to see how he's going to do up at 205. But I've been watching one. One has been really grabbing me, man, because of all the Muay Thai and kickboxing they have in it.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. What they lack though is, I mean, and this is where they should pay him the money, and it was good that they paid him the money, and he probably should be paid a lot more. But this is they lack a John Jones, So, I mean, there was never a point at which I watched John Jones and didn't. What is that thing that friend of mine likes to say? You ever look at a cow? And he says, you ever look at a cow and not know that you're looking at a cow? Like, it's like you always know when you look at a cow that it's a cow you're looking at. It's like with John Jones, it was like, yeah, man, this is greatness. There was never a moment where I saw him fight where I didn't think, I am witnessing greatness. And you don't get that with every fighter.
Also, the right wing slant to the entire operation is really starting to turn me off too,
Yeah, that sucks so bad. But we talked about that on If the Shoes Fit on this past Tuesday. And this is strategic on their part. And it's a calculation that they're comfortable making. And they make it with Ari Emanuel's at his direction in all likelihood. And keep in mind, Ari Emanuel is Rahm's brother. Rahm, who was, big Clinton guy. So this is part of a plan to, drive up shareholder value. And they have correctly figured out that that's where their success lies. So does it alienate people like you and me? Yep. But, I can watch with the sound off, But once John Jones goes, like I said on the show, there are about 5 fighters who are keeping me there. And once they go, I'm probably gone,
Yeah, I feel like Jones is like the last of the truly great fighters, you know what I mean, that I really am interested in. But the funny thing about the UFC, and I don't know if you ever experienced this, but it's like, like when you go to like a show, say for example, like a Death in June show or something like that, and you're in there, you got your girlfriend with you or whatever, and you're some friends. And then you start seeing guys show up that you never seen at any other shows before. You know what I mean? Like some of the guys are older, maybe.
Yeah.
You haven't really seen them around too much. And then at some point, Douglas P. is doing a To Klaus Barbie, that song by Death in June. And then the Nazi salute starts coming out.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like when I'm watching the UFC these days.
Yeah, man. It's the same, the one that you didn't watch, the Blachowicz fight. This piece that I watched. And the camera scanned through the audience at one point, and I'm like, this is interesting. There are people who have actually spent serious money here to buy BMF belts.
Yeah.
Like money they probably don't have. In addition to seats they probably couldn't afford, And they're going to put that on the wall at their house or wear it around. I felt nothing but sorrow for them, and it seemed to me predatory. What the UFC is doing seemed to me to be completely predatory. Like you're exploiting people who have problems, But
yeah, and I don't want to be like one of those guys like that with music too, where it's like, things were better back in like '85 or something.
It's hard. Look, there was a period where we were playing with a lot of Japanese bands. And the same sensation that you were getting, like, or alternatively having seen somebody like Melt Banana, where there's a kind of a clutch of guys that would be standing by Yuka's side of the stage. And I just got the feeling like, these guys are not here for the music. You know what I mean? hey, this is something else happening, whatever. I don't want to shake anybody's hustle. You take your manga fetish, whatever. Okay. You love melt banana. Really? Nah, you're just into fucking tiny Asian women. I got you. Whatever, man. Yeah. Do your creepy dude thing. I'm just here to see the show, not the judge.
So just real quick about the record again. So I've seen 3 videos so far. Okay.
They're 4.
There are 4 that are out right now. Okay. So I've seen Icy White and Crystalline, 1,000 Hours, and Lovely Merc. Okay.
Now, so you're missing Dead Ahead.
Dead Ahead. All right. I'll have to watch that one. The plan is to have a music video for every song on the record. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have seen, and I'm not sure if you produced any of these videos that I've mentioned, but you have plans or have worked with Zev Deans. Is that true?
Say it again?
Zev Deans. Has he produced?
Yeah. He did Lovely Merc.
Ah, excellent. Yeah, he's excellent. He's a good friend of mine. He's an excellent
person.
Oh,
good. Yeah, I stayed at his house on the way to shooting there. He seems like a good guy.
Yeah. So, what's the connection with that medium as far as like videos go? Because it's fascinating when there's like a sort of a representation of the song in like a pictorial sense. Like how involved are you with that, or you just hand the song off to somebody?
We sent them the lyrics and gave them the song title, other song titles on the record. Actually said all the lyrics, all song titles, the name of the record, and then we assigned songs to different directors, and then the directors had to essentially give us a 1-page take on it, and we didn't reject much. I think there was one scene where the guy had cut in for some reason. I don't know if you remember that Bing Crosby Christmas special.
Yeah.
They cut in the abominable snowman. I go, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, and then I remember when Zev was filming the Lovely Merc, he had actually an Olympic guy, fencing coach, who was there. He was also the drone operator. And he was like talking about the death scene, and they wanted to have me fall. And he goes, yeah, no, if Eugene falls like this, it'll be really funny. And I just go, hey, there is nothing funny about this fucking record. There's not a funny song on it. There's not a funny lyric. There's not a funny feeling. There's nothing funny. There's our worldview. There's not fun. And this was like Auschwitz. There's no fun here, And that's an unfair comparison, but you know what I mean. And so they all. The one that's most amazing to me is the last one for the last song for Gunnel. And it's Anna Paula Martin, this Italian filmmaker who's made all of the Buñuel videos, most of the Buñuel videos. And she just she got the essence of the song. It's crazy, It really worked wonderfully. And it came out of, my kids never saying to me, hey, Daddy, I want you to hear this new song. They would always say, hey, I want you to see this new song. Right? So many more people have watched these videos than will ever own any Oxbow work. So, it's Trojan horse, call it what you would, but it seems to be working.
Yeah, videos is definitely the thing. Because I remember there's a fairly well-known guy that appeared on one of our records that accused me of exploiting him at one point. That I've had to end my friendship with him over this. But he was making a big deal about the YouTube world and videos, and I was like, that's actually a really good point. That really is the way people are reached these days. Like that's a whole other thing that I never really considered.
Yeah. I mean, so again, if it's a calling card, whatever, and it allows. I mean, to a certain degree, I've kind of processed how it sounds shitty when I'm about to say, but how fucking stupid people are. They really need. I just assumed that there would be a certain level or willingness to fathom the depths, and then I'm like, okay, I got you. I don't mind handing stuff to you. Okay, So the video is a way to give you a guide rail into what the fuck it is we're talking about, since clearly people weren't getting it before.
You're actually doing some acting in there too.
Yeah, bad acting. I mean, straight off my success in Leonard Part 6 with Bill Cosby and my beer commercial with Gus Van Sant, I turned into a bravura actor. Acting. I'm acting like I got stabbed, when in actual fact I did sort of get stabbed.
So how's training going? Everything going okay?
Training is going great. I tell you, man, I'm going to give you a testimonial. I never thought I would do it. Like after I got the heel done, my heel is great. I'm running again, but I'm walking. If you see me on the street, I'm ambling. I'm not walking. And in anticipation of these shows, well, I train with a guy has got a CrossFit studio. He goes, look, just come by. He got me doing deadlifts.
Oh, okay.
2 sessions, which I do anyway, right?
Yeah.
But he does them differently. 2 sessions, my fucking hips don't hurt. I'm no longer ambling. I'm walking. It's mind blowing. It's so, I don't want to be like fucking culty, but it was fucking. I've been to physical therapy, nothing helped. The doctor gave me pills, nothing helped. Only thing I haven't done is acupuncture. I've been using the TheraBands. The shit's not helping. Nothing's helping. 2 sessions with these fucking deadlifts, and now I'm walking like I used to. It's great.
I mean, without giving away any of the secrets, like what's so different about it? Like, they like Romanian deadlifts, like low weight, high reps. Like what's the story?
he used the word he used, and I should ask him. It was Cuban in the word, something Cuban. So you're thrusting your ass out, and you're flattening your back, and the pull is on your hams. So he goes, yeah, you this is it's not bodybuilding, powerlifting, deadlift that I'm used to. He goes, you gotta activate your butt to get it in there.
Oh yeah, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. It's almost like doing like a kettlebell swing or something, right?
Yes. Exactly right.
Actually, our mutual friend Gavin Van Vlack, I think, coached me on that one time several years ago about how to do that type of deadlift.
Yeah, man. So I'm like getting in and out of a car. That motion when you're driving, you open the door, you swing one leg in. That was murder for me. I mean, we're talking a week and a half ago. That was murder. Still, I would have to put my ass on the seat and kind of lift my legs in. So no more.
Yeah, that's. I'm getting up there in years. I recently injured myself just by walking off the mat, actually, about a month ago.
Man. Yep. This shit is not, I'm 7 days a week now. So still, and I'm very delicate about stuff, stepping off in the shower afterward. I'm like, nah, take it easy. I don't want to die in here,
So let's take some time now and give all the plugs, like where people can follow you.
I got 5 minutes, man. I got a hard stop.
Yep.
Okay.
So where do you want to? Where can people find all this stuff? Like where can they follow you for the podcast, buy the record, like all that kind of stuff?
The Substack is Look What You Made Me Do. So you go to Substack.com and then type in Look What You Made Me Do. I don't know, or just type it in Google to find it. You can read it for free if you choose, or you could subscribe for a little bit of change here and there. Also on the Substack is a Eugene S. Robinson show stomper. Yeah, but I would consider that to be more of a sports show, even though I don't really talk about sports the entire time. And Instagram is Mr. Sleep 3. I think it is on Instagram, and standby Facebook. You can find me.
Awesome. Well, Eugene, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon when you come out to New York. I'll definitely.
That's gonna be a blast, man. We got to get something to eat.
Hell yeah! All right, dude. Have a good day. Now.
All right, Mike. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.